So we're ready to go. So I know it's hard to imagine, but 21 years ago, when I was a slip of a lad, I ran a marathon with 8 weeks training. I was out having a jog one morning and I ran into a friend, Jane, who was training for the race and asked me whether I'd trained with her for the last 8 weeks. Well, I wondered whether I could go one better and actually run with her. So I rang a couple of personal trainers, blokes that I knew, and they said, you know, don't even contemplate it. You're stupid. You need 6 to 9 months training to run that far. So I was walking down the street and I ran into a mate of mine, Charlie, who'd run 7 marathons. He said, of course you can run a marathon. If you can run 1K, you can run 42. I'll draw up a training schedule for you. So Jane had her training partner. We ran between 5 and 12K each day. Saturdays was a long run, Sundays we'd rest. 2 weeks later, Charlie had us entered into a half marathon, 21 kilometres, more than twice the distance that I'd ever run before in my life. Well, somehow, with Jane's encouragement, cajoling and berating, we finished. I lay there exhausted on the ground thinking, what have I got myself into? How am I ever going to run another 21K after that? But we did. We got up every morning, rain, hail and shine, and we followed Charlie's schedules. And, you know, some of those mornings, especially the rain and the cold wind, I wondered again, you know, why was I doing it? Our long runs, we ran from Kooyong into the city, another week to Kooyong to Collingwood, and we culminated the last week, we ran from Kooyong to Ivanhoe and back, 30K. Well, this wasn't a good one for Jane because she hit the wall and nearly collapsed on the roadside just near the end. But for me, you know, in the last week, we tapered off 5K a day, a lazy 5K a day. I'd never felt so fitter in my life. And in fact, I was talking to Bernard down here the week before and about running the race, and he was telling us about a guy that we both knew who had trained for nearly 12 months to run the marathon, and a couple of days before had got the flu. Independently that afternoon, I was talking to another bloke who was telling me half his office was away with the flu. Well, it's amazing how your mind plays tricks on you. And I you know, started thinking, oh God, I'm not going to get the flu, I'm not going to get the flu. Well, I went home that night, I was a bit of a nervous wreck, I hardly slept. And then the next morning, I sort of got up and thinking, oh God, I feel a bit hot, I better not run, I better conserve my energy. I went to work that day, I was useless. Every 5 or 10 minutes, I was feeling my forehead to think, oh, you know, am I all right, am I all right? So anyhow, I went home that night and I think I needed something to distract myself. So at random, I picked a book out of the bookshelf, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Frankl is a psychotherapist who survived Auschwitz. So I started reading this book and he talked about how people survived at Auschwitz by imagining being emancipated back to Poland and being reunited with their loved ones. He also talked about when people gave up hope, they normally died within a week. And then he talked about when liberation came and these people, these men, went back to Poland and their dreams became their worst nightmares as they realised their loved ones had been exterminated in the death camps. They gave up all hope and there was mass suicides. Well, I was sitting there thinking how pathetic I was, worrying about running a marathon. So I just sort of got into my running gear, went out and went for a run. So I was back on track. So I wanted to break 4 hours for the marathon. And I drew up a schedule, shared it with Jane. She wasn't as enthusiastic because she was still nervous about hitting the wall the week before. But so anyhow, the big day came and off we went. So everything was going swimmingly until about 4K into the run, I tripped over the gutter and rolled my ankle. It was excruciating pain. Every time my left heel went on the ground, it shot up bolts of pain through me. I felt sick, I felt faint, you know, I didn't know what I was going to do. So Jane's a physio and said, look out for a first aid tent and get your ankle strapped. And she said, be careful, you take your shoe off. You take your shoe off, it might blow up, and your foot might blow up, you might not get it back on again. Well, I didn't really want that. And then I started thinking about a bloke that I'd met who'd run 2 Hawaii Ironmans. The Hawaii Ironman is a 4K swim, 180K bike ride, and then a marathon. And he talked about the importance of mastering your mind. You know you're fit enough to do it, but you know, you've got to focus on positives. If you think you've got a twinge in your leg, it'll feel as though you're carrying a brick on your leg. So I started imagining my wife and my daughters, all my family, in fact, anyone I ever met, I sort of visualised them being at the finishing line cheering for me, and amazingly, the pain dissipated. So on we ran, we got to the 18K mark. I said, Jane, we're 1 minute and 48 behind schedule. She said, Kevin, I don't care. She said, I need a toilet. I'm desperate. I said, now, if any of you have ever run, it does have this effect of loosening your bowels up. So we're on the lookout for a toilet. We couldn't sort of see anything. All of a sudden there was a clearing, and all these people were having a picnic, you know, watching people run the race. Jane said, just go on without me. So she stopped, casually moved in amongst these people, squatted beside a bush, did what she needed to do, and then casually leant over between these dumbfounded people, picked up 2 serviettes off her blanket, cleaned herself up, pulled her strides up, and on her way she went. We'll talk about doing whatever it takes. It was amazing. So, anyhow, on we ran, and it was, you know, it was hard at times. You know, we had lows and we had highs. I got to the 40K mark, and I felt I was spent, and I didn't think I could go on, when suddenly this girl recognised me on the roadside, and she calls out, "Go, Kevin!" Well, the crowd had a name, and it was like a Mexican wave. Go, Kev! Go, Kev! Go, Kev! Well, I forgot all about my tiredness. I felt like I was running on air. I finished in 3:57. It was one of the times in my life when I felt 100% successful. Jane finished in 4:20, which was great. I took my shoe off. It was black. My foot, and she's a, you know, as physio, she assessed it as a grade 1 strain. But amazingly, you know, 8 weeks before, so many people said I couldn't do it, I was crazy. But, you know, when you've got a goal, when you've got a dream, and when you've got a plan, you can do anything as long as you believe in yourself.